G'day you mob, how's it going? Welcome to this episode of Pete vs Plants. I am Pete and the plants are in the box. Today we are doing another little chores video where I'm going to deal with some prop boxes. I'm having a look around. I've probably got another one that I can get into somewhere. I think I've got another like 3 or 4 somewhere. It just never ends. This was me going crazy a few months ago, probably 6 months ago or so, with just propagations and working on different techniques. Anyway, so here in this box I have a bunch of spider plants and what look like adansonii, Monstera adansonii, and I think that's all that's in here. So anyway, these have gone ballistic, as you can probably tell. They have gone off like a frog in a sock, and it's just ridiculous, guys. It's just ridiculous, you know? So yeah, it was about time that we pulled these dudes out and gave them an upgrade. So I think these guys are just gonna come out as a single mat. We will do what we have done in the past. That was easy. Pull them out onto the table here. I'll give you a better look at what's going on. What do you reckon? Maybe we just leave it like this, guys. Just on the dinner table. It's a nice little feature piece. I think my wife would be happy with that. No, she would not. Okay, how are we gonna do this? I guess first and foremost, I'm gonna try and find any loose, kind of like wet sticks on top. There was one that was moving around. I don't know where he went. No, lost him. Oh, here we go. There's one that just looks like it didn't make it. How do we deal with this? I guess we just go one thing at a time, right? But yeah, so the story with these were some of the spider plants that were actually at the front of my old house that we were renting. So we just bought this house a month ago, in the last month, and moved out of the previous house. And there was a spider plant out there, the one that is variegated with white on the outside. So I think I've got this one. I've got the one that's variegated on the inside. I'm trying to look around and see if I can see it. And no, I cannot. I don't know where it is. And then I've got the curly one as well. So there's a whole bunch. You can get the only green too. But anyway, I ended up just taking a bunch of these sort of little plantlets that were coming off the plant and wanted to see how quickly they would take off in a prop box. And yeah, they have gone wild. So I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do about this mess here. Jesus, I don't think I'm gonna be able to untangle everything, guys, to be honest. There's probably more roots in here than there is moss. Oh man, check this out. I think that is the smallest variegated leaf I have ever seen. That thing is absolutely tiny. Even comes with roots, So yeah, I guess we'll put you over there. We'll try and give you a go of it, mate, but I have a feeling you're probably gonna dry up pretty quickly. All right, next one. Here's another adansonii. Jesus, another adansonii that has just gone absolutely crazy with roots. Far out, and it's just, they've grown along all these other ones too. So yeah, there we go. All right, there's that one, another really tiny variegated leaf. Chuck you up there. We will slowly work our way through this, guys. Put the moss back in the box. Into the box you go. Oh, here's another one. This is just a little wet stick that seems to have grown some roots, but hasn't popped out a shoot yet. Oh man, and they are so kind of tangled up. This is a total nightmare. Definitely should have done this earlier. So yeah, there's another wet stick here. Hasn't really done much. I don't know how you could really improve the conditions for some of these wet sticks. Some of them, as we've talked about in the previous potting up prop box videos, some of them seem to go nuts and other ones just seem to do absolutely nothing under the same conditions. So I'm always perplexed when you have cuttings from the same plant that were put in the same prop box at the same time under the same conditions, and for one reason or another, one of them has gone nuts and the other one has done nothing. Okay, what else have we got here? Some more. Come on. Just separate out without me having to get in there too much. Jeez, the spider plant roots are just like a dense mat in here. They kind of seem to push off secondary roots really, really quickly. There we go. And I think what I'm going to do with a bunch of these adansonii plants is just give them away as presents, because I have so many now from just practicing my propagation. Okay, here's one that, again, it's been in there for months and all it's done is push out a growth point. This one has done sort of the same, another growth point, but the roots of it have died, done nothing. Oof, this one's got some good roots on it. And if you guys want to see the quickest way I found of rooting things is not actually in prop boxes like this or water propagation, it's aeroponics. So I will put the link above for you to check out my aeroponics playlist. And yeah, check out the progression of the plants that I put into aeroponics, because it was just absolutely astonishing how quickly they developed roots and how advanced the root systems were. Like they just bifurcated, you know, they shot off secondary roots so quickly that it was just something that was astonishing. I did not expect that at all to happen that quickly within, like, I think we did a few weeks update and then a month update and then a 2-month update, and the 2-month is just insane. Okay, so there is one of the spider plants, and yeah, just the roots are crazy. I don't know if you guys can see here at the bottom. Look at that, just gone nuts. And these guys tend to form tubers. So what you will notice, once they start maturing as plants, they form these kind of like tubers that I think is probably to hold on to carbohydrates and water for the plant, so that the plant, you know, if it goes into tough times, it can pull from those stores, those sources of nutrients and water. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to see them. All right, another cutting here, far out. Nothing, just roots. It looks like the growth point has actually carked it. No, that's a root. Where's the growth point? Is there no growth point yet? Guess it's in there somewhere. All right, still got a few more of these. Far out. You are really in there. I don't know, I can hear a bunch of roots snapping. I think it was probably the spider plant. But they are, yeah, they're just voracious guys, so don't be too delicate with them. They are fine. Look at that. It's a whole mat of roots in here, so even if you do rip a few of the roots, they will grow back really quickly. Oh, that cutting took off. So that is another tip cutting, and that has quite a substantial root system that has developed off the bottom of a few of these nodes. 1, 2, 3, look like, yeah, 3 or 4 nodes in here have just gone ballistic. And then there is one more here, roots again. All right, so we got a whole bunch of these spider plants in moss, and I'm not sure if I want to keep them in a little bit of moss like this around the roots, or if I need to remove a great deal of it when potting them up. I think I'm going to chuck the 4 of them in the same pot and then do this little kind of delicate fancy deal. The pot is kind of coming over the top here, but the plant's probably going to hang down pretty well. And yeah, I don't have any other pots that are kind of shorter or stouter that can fit in here like this. The other option is to use like a smaller pot like this, but I think it's just going to be moving around way too much. So bigger pot it is. So I'm going to try and remove a bit of the moss, but I'm probably not too phased. I think these guys will survive. I don't think they'll do too badly, yeah. So what I think I'm just going to do is bunch them all together, like so, as close to one another as I can, and we'll chuck them into the pot here. So I've got my soil mix. Oop, another wet stick hiding here. There's a few of them actually. Another one here, another one here. Better put this moss back into the bucket first, and then I'll grab my soil mix. Okay, here you go, buddy. Save you for later. Okay, so I've just got my sort of rocky, chunky soil mix here. I have actually mixed in a bunch of succulent soil. I just had it sitting in this pot because I'd used it to pot up some of my succulent plants recently. I think I'll try and link the video above if I can remember which one it is, but it was one of the plant chore videos. And because these guys aren't aeroids, I'm not too worried about the mix being too well draining. They should do okay in this kind of soil mix, hopefully, I'm hoping. Again, I'm no spider plant expert. I'm kind of wanting to, I guess I'll stand up to do this. Need a bit more of an better angle on the bucket of soil here to be able to fill everything in. So, all right. I think this is going to be pretty straightforward, guys. Getting a bit of a tap. But yeah, I actually really like spider plants. So they get a lot of hate from people, it seems, online, the indoor plant community. I mean, you know, there's probably not that much hate, but people don't seem to rant or rave about them like they do other aeroids. Well, these aren't aeroids, but you know what I mean, like they do with the aeroids. But I reckon spider plants are pretty cool. I just love, especially when you get a decent sized one and it starts shooting out all of those flowers and or baby plants, and it starts hanging down. It just looks mint, right? It just looks like, you know, some kind of crazy haircut or something. Anyway, so that's that. Guys, I think I'm gonna throw these cuttings away because I have so many damn adansonii. You know what, maybe we don't throw them away. Maybe I try and pot them into my huge adansonii pot. I'll give you guys a look, but hopefully we can do that and they'll survive. All right. Oh. I just watered this thing recently and it is a boost. So this is my adansonii. What would you say? It's like a windowsill pot. And yeah, these were all cuttings from a basket that I took probably about 6 months or more ago when I was really getting into learning about propagations. And I effectively just went to Bunnings, bought a bunch of these sort of cheap plants and chopped them up and, you know, just tried to... Is that a fucking spider mite? Are you serious? It's a fucking spider mite. Or at least it's a very small mite. Could be a predatory one, but it's white. Whatever. I'll give you guys treatment in the future. It's funny, you see these like little white dots everywhere? And then it's dust, but sometimes they move. And that's when you're like, is it spider mites? I can't see any webbing anywhere. Could just be a mite of some kind that isn't too much of a problem. Looking. Do we have any anywhere else that are particularly obvious? I treated this guy with the predatory mites recently anyway, so perhaps this little dude is on the run and all the hounds, the predatory mites, chasing him down, sniffing him down. They're on your trail, mate. Good luck to you. Anyway, panic aside. So yeah, I had bought a bunch of these cheaper plants, taken a bunch of cuttings. I think with these, I actually put some in soil. I don't know why, but I put some in charcoal. And I put some in, what was the other mix? I think it was just, was it moss? It may have been just water. Yeah, it was water. And ended up with 5 pots of just standard adansonii. They've just been growing ever since. And then recently I was like, they're not gonna pay their rent on the shelves. So I'm just gonna pot them up together and we'll see how they go. So I think, I'm pretty sure these are the same variant as these guys, this sort of small form adansonii. The leaves don't get too big. So what I'm gonna do is try and pot them up together and yeah, wish them the best of luck. Worst case scenario, they all die, all these cuttings, but hopefully they take and we just end up with this really cool, what I have in my mind is like this cascading adansonii pot where I can put it on a shelf like behind me here or up on a shelf on my stands, and it will just have this kind of like waterfall cascade of the different growth points coming down. So yeah, that's what I have in my mind, gosh. That's what I have in my mind. So I think I'm just gonna do this with my hands. Get down and dirty. Get down and dirty. So I'm thinking about like getting the roots as deep as possible into the substrate because that's where the moisture is gonna stay. If you only have them at the surface, they're gonna dry out really quickly. You wanna get those roots as deep as possible without obviously disturbing too many of the other roots in here. That one's gonna be a fun one to try and work out. So I'll try and dig around in here. The good thing is I only potted this up about, I think it was probably a week ago. So the plants in here haven't really had time to establish themselves and send roots throughout the entire substrate. So I can actually dig here and I'm not coming across any roots as I'm doing this. And I'm just gonna bury this guy in. In fact, I can, yeah, get him right down there. Get your roots in there, mate. It's for your own good. All right. right. And he's got roots coming out of the vines. And so I'm gonna try, you know what I'm gonna actually do? I think I've got, I may have run out. What I'm gonna do, get some wire here and cut off some little lengths of this thin fencing wire. It's pretty cheap stuff that you can get from Bunnings. And use it to push down on the node that has the roots coming out, just so that it stays in contact with the soil, because it's kind of trying to spring up at the moment, and I want it to stay down so that the roots stay under the soil and submerged and moist. So yeah, just push this guy down, work him in, and he will hold the growth point there in place, and hopefully keep these guys hydrated. All right, maybe I'll give you guys a different angle. Whoop. Caught on one of the leaves. Let's see how we go with the next one. Okay, so here's what I'm doing. Just kind of digging a pit down, maybe, I don't know, what would you say, 10 centimeters? Maybe about, what's that in inches, 4 inches? And shoving the roots down as deep as they can go, and then making sure that the growth point, wherever that is on the cutting, is at the surface so that it can hopefully grow out easily. I expect a bunch of these to die though, to be honest, and I don't... What was that? That was that! Sounded like glass smashing. Must mean something in my toolbox. It scared the shit out of me for a sec, mate. What was I going to say? I'm expecting a bunch of these to die. I guess we'll see how we go. Wish me luck. But yeah, it would be really cool if all of these kind of bush out and give me a really nice adansonii pot. It's a really cool plant, guys. I don't know, this is one of the first plants that I fell in love with just because of the fenestrations. The fact that it's such a vicious, voracious grower. Grows like wildfire, it just goes off. And it has fenestrations. The fenestrations are what it's all about, man. I don't know how people don't get really, really, really deep into the Monstera love hole, because fenestrations are just where it is at, guys. Rhaphidophora, Epipremnum, and Monstera, and I think some pothos, some philodendrons. Is it philodendrons? What am I thinking about? Maybe they're Epipremnums that I'm thinking about. Yeah, they get fenestrations, and it is just the bomb. It is just the bomb. If you're not on the fenestration bandwagon, what are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Where the bloody hell are you? How many more have we got? I think I'm gonna get lazy and just put these all into a single hole and wish you the best of luck. The other ones here, including this tiddler, I really don't expect this one to make it. I guess I would be lazy to not try and put him in here. There we go. Good luck to you, mate. I wish you the best. I am sending you positive vibes, little buddy, but I have a feeling you're gonna get drowned out by all the other leaves. And yeah, succumb. All right, where else can I chuck these guys without disturbing all the ones that I've just put in there? Might have to do this in the front. All right, I'm gonna stand up to do this, guys. All right. Try and get down the front here. Dig, 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 dig. Okay, come on. Get in there, Billy. Okay. All right, I think I'm just gonna have to get a bit of soil from down here and put this over the top. I think that's gonna make my life a little easier. There we go. All right. Oh, one fell out. You know what? Doesn't matter. That's probably enough. There we go. Okay, so, oof, that's a huge root that is just poking up above the ground. That's not good. We probably need to get you below the surface. So I don't think I'm gonna water it because it was watered probably in the last week, and I can actually feel that it's pretty moist, so I don't wanna overdo it or else all of these guys will probably rot. So I'm just gonna leave it as is, probably in the next week, and I can feel it's pretty heavy. So I think probably in the next week or so, I'll just check on it again. It's not getting a load of light. And in fact, to give it more light, I'm trying to think of a better place to put it. Could just chuck it up here on the shelf. I'll do that and I'll show you what it looks like. Don't drop it on my head. Ow! Oh, I think I just cut my finger. running it along the plastic. That wasn't good. Ow. Yep, sliced my finger. Fail. Okay, so I've got him up here. It's not getting loads of light. It should be all right once the curtains are open. The curtains are open usually early morning and then late afternoon, just so that the plant's up against the windows here, which are mostly, I think, Thai constellations. Yeah, Thai constellation. That's a mint, Monstera, Thai. I don't want them getting too much direct light because they will, get bleached. So yeah, but it should be getting enough light, I think, or at least enough to keep it growing and not dying in the early morning and late afternoon. Hopefully I'm not making you too dizzy. Should we keep going, guys? Have I got anything else to do? I think I might just clean this cup quickly and I'll be back. All right, so I'm just gonna grab a Band-Aid out here. This will be something you guys will laugh at. In Australia, we call these Band-Aids. I think the Brits call them plasters, I think. It's always seemed weird to me because these don't have any plaster. I imagine it's sort of like plaster cast. Maybe originally they had plaster in them. But yeah, in Australian English, we call these Band-Aids because of, I think, the brand. I imagine that's what they're called. Band-Aids? Yeah, there you go. That's why we call them Band-Aids. Hopefully that's not backwards. It's backwards to me, but Band-Aid. And it's the same reason we call Glad Wrap, no matter what the brand is, because the most common one is called Glad Wrap. So I've put a Band-Aid on just because I'm a little nervous about rummaging around with a fresh wound in the soil. It's probably not the best thing if you want to keep things from getting infected. So yeah, anyway. I'm not a doctor, but that's what I imagine. So here is another prop box worth of moss that I am just going to kind of keep closed up and just use in the future if I want to propagate things with a prop box or if I want to fill up a moss pole. I usually recycle this stuff. I'm not going to throw it out unless whatever was in there had a lot of really bad root rot. And even then, usually I just boil it and use it again. You know, it's one of those things. If you were going to use it with really precious plants, then I would probably just use fresh moss every single time. And again, I would probably boil it first. But if you're not too phased, you know, if it's a propagation box or something like that with plants that, you know, you're not really going to cry if they die, then just reuse. All right, so I'm going to clean this up and then I'll grab one more box. And I think once we smash that out, what's the time? 3:41. We've got about another 40 minutes until I've got to go get my kids from daycare. So we have to harvest while the sun is shining, right? Is that it? Make hay while the sun is shining? What else have we got here that I can pull out of a prop box? This one over here. I see you. Are you ready to, you look ready to go. Yeah. Whew. All right. So I had a look under the skirt, had a bit of a peek, and you can probably see loads and loads of roots there. As we talked about in the previous videos, it's really good when you see condensation like this right at the bottom of the moss, as well as on the sides and on the top. I think ideally your propagation boxes, you want condensation to be on effectively all the surfaces. If you see a lot of it down the bottom but not at the top, it's probably not cycling around and evaporating out. You probably need a bit more moisture in the system. If you see none of it on the bottom, it's probably because you have it on a heat mat and it's too warm so that all of the condensation down here, the water, is evaporating and moving up to the sides or to the top, and the moss isn't thoroughly moist, if that makes sense. So that if you have roots down the bottom, they could potentially be in a layer of moss where it's really dry and they're not staying hydrated and pulling out moisture, and you might end up with root rot. So yeah, or the roots may just not grow into it. That's what I've noticed too. I've noticed this when I have had my box like sideways and a heat mat has been on half of the box, and I'll lift it up and look underneath, and if the heat mat was on this side, I'll notice this side has no condensation, or at least very little. This side has heaps, and the roots will all be over here, and there'll be none over here. If the heat mat has been there since I started the propagation process. So yeah. Okay, in here, we've got, I think, some Giant Hawaiian Pothos. I keep using that damn term, but I mean Giant Hawaiian Epipremnum aureum. I think that's what it is. Can I put that on the outside here? Yes, Giant Hawaiian Pothos is what I called it. But as we talked about previously, it's not Pothos technically. Pothos is a completely different genus of aeroid plant that looks nothing like Epipremnum, Syndapsis, or Philodendron. Okay, and then I think we have some Peperomia something in here. I was just taking these as cuttings to see how long they took, and they take ages, guys. They take ages. But they kind of do this really cute thing where they bunch out, all the growth comes out of the base of the leaf or the petiole that's joining to the leaf. It's kind of really cute, but yeah, I'm not too attached to those, so I don't really mind. The pothos, this is what I wanted to keep, the Giant Hawaiian Pothos, and it's in here. I chopped it up and put it in here because originally I bought a vine of it, but it ended up with stem rot. So for some reason, I noticed some of the lower leaves started going yellow and falling off, and then I was looking at the stem, and the stem had actually died, and the rest of the plant was still alive. So I ended up obviously taking it as cuttings, chucking it in the prop box here, with the hope that it would survive, and it looks like there's a whole lot of growth that's come out, and that was months ago. And what we also have here is some live sphagnum moss. I love seeing that in the propagation boxes. All right, so I guess I'll stop rabbiting on and we will pull these guys out. They are thoroughly in there, which is no surprise considering the roots beneath the prop box. And yeah, I guess we'll take everything out. So here's what these Peperomia cuttings look like. Originally, they were just a single leaf. I'm not sure if you can see that leaf that I'm holding. And that's what ends up happening. All these little shoots come out from the bottom there. And the roots obviously are a lot finer than your standard aeroid roots. I don't know if you can see these, they're sort of hard to see with the moss. They're really, really fine. But yeah, overall these seem to be incredibly easy to propagate. They just take forever, guys. I tried doing some watermelon peperomia in water and it just took forever. It took absolutely forever. I'll have to do them in some aeroponic system soon and just see how it goes. See if they take as long. I imagine that it would speed up the process a great deal. But yeah, that's effectively what you get. Bunch of roots at the bottom and then all of these little shoots coming up. This leaf will eventually, the big one here, will die off, and then you'll just have these tiny little Peperomia plants that just keep, I don't know why I made that sound, but they keep growing and pushing out more and more leaves. Okay, so let's see if we can separate these guys out. And I don't know, do we chuck them in soil? Do we chuck them in hydro? What do we chuck them in? Chuck them in moss? I might just chuck these guys in soil, to be honest, because ultimately the plan with these was to grow them up a moss pole and try and get some really, really big leaves growing. That was the goal. So originally when I got this, I chucked it on a moss pole, and that was when I noticed that the plant was dying. so yeah, and it was variegated originally. It was sort of like devil's ivy, but it looks like barely any of the plant here has maintained that variegation, so it may have just reverted as a result of being propagated, guys. You'll have to let me know if you guys have had devil's ivy revert on you before. Jesus, these have grown into one another really, really well. Okay, so I'm just gonna tug away gently and remove some of this moss as best I can. Because I'm going to put them in soil, I'm not really too phased about removing all the moss. From what you guys have told me, you should only really be, I guess, really anal about removing all the moss. Do I remove that? I guess I'll just leave it as is. Sorry, it's just this yellow bit. If you're putting it into semi-hydro, that's when you need to get rid of it all, but I'm not too phased. If a bit of extra moisture is sort of held around the roots, it's probably not going to do it any harm, as long as it doesn't get overwatered. And it shouldn't when I pole it up, because the mix that I tend to use for the moss poles is incredibly chunky, and yeah, the moss in the poles stays really moist, but the mix usually dries out, encouraging the roots to grow into the pole instead of establishing themselves down in the soil. At least that's the idea. Jesus, this is such a mess. It's the only sort of trade-off, guys. I think if you were to use perlite instead of moss, you would have a much easier time of separating out these roots from the moss and from one another. But I'm yet to really do that. I do have one little perlite prop box, but yeah, I haven't actually experimented too much with it. I've been using these moss ones more. So I gently pull on this, will this come out? Come on. These have grown in together so tightly. Maybe I just leave it as one big bunch and just put them all together. Boom. Okay, that one came out. Can we gently pull these apart? I don't think so. This root seems to have like grown really close to this one and then sent out all these other roots below, these secondary roots off the side of itself, making my life hard. Maybe we just leave these two together. So I'm gonna pop them all up anyway. Yeah, screw it. I'm just gonna leave these guys together, guys, because that's what I'm gonna end up doing anyway. So we're gonna chuck them all together here. I'm just making sure that all the roots and the nodes are kind of bunched together, but the roots are gonna be below the surface, obviously, and that the wet sticks, the stems here, are sort of at the surface and allowing the growth points to go upwards. And I think in the spirit of saving a bit of space, I might chuck them into a smaller pot. What do you reckon, guys? Though that might be too small. It should work. We'll give it a go, see what happens. Worst case scenario, we just repot it sooner. Sooner than expected. Okay, a little bit of soil at the bottom. Probably not too much, otherwise nothing will fit in here. And all the roots down below. Down you go, down you go. And again, I'm gonna stand up, guys, sorry, on my tippy toes so that I can get into the box here and fill her up with soil. I should add, guys, I think I really did well tackling the gnat problem. I was having a gnat outbreak, as I think we spoke about in one of the previous videos that I was doing here. I was chatting to you guys about, you know, the fact that there were fungus gnats everywhere and what you guys recommend doing about them. And I ended up using some sort of insecticide plugs that you can just put into your electric outlets in your house. So I've got about 4 or 5 of those around the house, in conjunction with tanlin. So that is, do I have some up here? Here we go. Tanlin is these little crystals that come in water as they're tanlin drops. And although it's tiny, you pretty much just use 1 drop per 2 liters of water. And the crystals, I think they expand in the water. And so what happens is the gnats end up consuming the crystals when they're eating in the soil, and the crystals expand inside their stomachs and, you know, alien style, explode out. So yeah, it has dramatically decreased the population of gnats that I had in and around the plants. Although to be fair, guys, I did move house, so perhaps I've left the problem for the next tenants in the old house. Although they didn't seem to be many left once we'd moved all the plants. But yeah, since moving here, I just found, what is this? Since moving here, I haven't noticed many. I guess that's another giant pothos. I have absolutely no idea what this guy is. And I love the fact that roots have come out of the middle, well, the internodal spacing, right? Where that's been cut, there's a little root right here and there's one right here. It's really interesting when they come out of the actual end of a cutting, the internodal spacing, as opposed to these ones around the node. So I guess I'll try and wedge this guy in here somewhere and wish him the best of luck. But I have a feeling he's probably gonna dry out. Sorry, mate. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of moss. There you go. Good luck to you. Good luck to you, pal. Good luck to you, buddy. Now, I do have one more thing that I want to do. What's the time? It's 4 o'clock. We've got a little bit more time left. I think I'm going to chuck my zebrina into a larger vessel. Do we do a big vessel? I think we do. So this is my ALOCASIA ZEBRINA. When I bought this, it looked great, and then it rapidly took a decline. It started looking the worse for wear. And yeah, I was like, do I chuck it? Do I keep it? I ended up chopping off all the leaves and the base looked really healthy, so I kept that obviously, or else I wouldn't have this in front of me. And I chucked it into some perlite and leca here in this jar, and I was amazed. The roots went ballistic within weeks. They had filled up the bottom here. I'm not sure if you can see, it's a bit full of algae, but they quickly just populated the entire vessel here down the bottom. And so I was like, okay, that's a good sign. It then shot out this leaf this size, and I was like, wow, okay. So she's like, I'm not done. I'm not done, son. And then shot out this one about a month ago. So yeah, I think it's probably time to give this girl a bigger vessel. I just love the zebrinas because of these stems. They are absolutely stunning. But as you guys all know from previous videos, I suck with alocasias in soil, and so that is why I have gradually moved them all over to semi-hydro. And when I do, they seem to do really well because you no longer have to worry about overwatering or underwatering them, because that's the problem I tend to have. They do fine until they're underwatered or until they're slightly overwatered, and then they just rot. And often the issue is they get underwatered, with me at least. I'm sort of an underwaterer usually. And then when I find out that they're dry in soil, I'm like, oh shit, okay. And I just thoroughly drench the soil, even if it is really well draining soil. Well, probably not really well draining soil. The alocasias that have died have probably still been in the soil they came in. But as a result, I have overestimated the amount of watering they needed, and within days they die. All the roots just drop, all of them rot off. You see the plant kind of tilt and you're like, oh shit. And you can literally just pick it up out of the soil and everything's rotted off. But a few times that's happened, and I have ended up saving the plant by chucking them into semi-hydro. So don't give up. If everything looks solid, you know, it doesn't look like the stem has rotted, try it in semi-hydro and you may have good results like I have. Anyway, so I'm not really sure how big a vessel to go. I'm kind of thinking that this is probably going to be overkill, but because it's semi-hydro, I probably don't need to worry too much about root rot if the vessel's too big. I don't know, again, I'm learning, so you guys tell me, but I have a feeling that it'll probably do okay in a vessel like this. So I think what I'm gonna do, just looking for something that I can pour the leca and perlite into. Let's see how easily this girl comes out. Just have to give her a bit of a tap to get some of this stuff loose. And then, oh, she's really well wedged in there, to be honest. Okay, oh, there we go, loosen her up. And this is probably a good time to be repotting, because I think if I left her for too much longer, because there's like a rim on this jar, she probably wouldn't want to come out. I'm gonna have to get this leca kind of separated from the root system while it's in here. Hopefully that didn't damage too much. And then try and wedge her out without doing too much damage to the roots, although I've probably done a little bit just by moving her around. So sorry if that's the case, mate. Look, I'm sorry. I need to get you out though. There we go. Okay, gross. So what I am gonna do before chucking her into a new system is just remove all of the substrate down here. I'm also going to check for corms, but they look like they're developing, but nothing substantial has come out yet. There seems to be a bit of detritus kind of material along the sides here. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that looks like, you know, rot of the sheath. So what I'm going to do is go over to the sink here. You guys can come with me and we'll give her a bit of a rinse. So hopefully you guys have an okay view. But yeah, I'm going to try and remove this dead plant material and the other, whoops, it's a bit warm, the other perlite and leca down the bottom here, and any of this other sort of sheathing that is here. Try and get that off as well. But why is that so hot? It's on cold. What's the deal? Probably because it's so hot outside. Sorry if you guys can't hear me properly because of the water. All right. There are actually a little bit of rotten roots here, I think, or at least rotting material. So I'm going to try and separate that from the plant. And I can actually see a few corms starting to form, which is cool. Obviously means that she's got more energy than she needs just to survive. I think that's everything. So again, I'm going to try and remove any rotten roots. And yeah, cool. All right, hopefully that's all right. You guys will have to let me know if you have to be more thorough than this, but I think that's what we're going to go with today. So I will chuck you back on the table. I'm going to chuck her here, and I have some leca that I have soaked earlier, so I'm just going to probably chuck that in as the reservoir, and I can probably, yeah, I can probably put it a little bit higher. Let me get rid of that and grab some of the other leca that I've got that I have already cleaned and rinsed. Whoop, we're losing it. Okay. So that is probably good. Just going to try and situate her nicely and then backfill. Okay. All right, I think we're all good there. It's probably fine. Again, if you guys have any tips and tricks re semi-hydro and alocasias, please don't be afraid to share them below. And I think we will just pour into maybe about here. Let's just see if I can keep my finger in place. Oh, I can see the roots down the back here. So I'm going to pour to about so. Hopefully you guys can see the roots are about here and the reservoir is below. And hopefully she just keeps taking off, because I would love a much bigger Alocasia zebrina holding onto multiple leaves, more than 2 at least. It would be amazing to have these. I've seen some of them, you know, almost 1.5 meters tall, and they just have like 5 or 10 leaves, and you're just like, what? So yeah, that's the goal, I guess. This is just more of a plant that I like than an investment plant. I think they're pretty easy to get your hands on no matter where you are now. The investment ones, if you were thinking about investing in Alocasia zebrina, are the reticulata, I would imagine. I've got one of those over here, although it's not having a good time of it. Needs to be put in semi-hydro. And the variegated zebrina and or reticulata. So if you can find one of them, they tend to be pretty expensive, and yeah, collectors seem to be really interested in those. I don't know why I just showed you the leaf, but the variegated ones are pretty nice and go for a pretty penny as a result. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, let's chat in the comments. Let me know what you guys have been repotting up as well recently. And YouTube reckons you're going to enjoy this video, so I hope you give it a click-a-rooney, and I'll see you over there. Tooroo.